afraid, my son. This is our path to walk. Live in honor.
Father!
I will avenge you, Father.
My son, leave Viepus.
He will die just like your father. I will claim my kingdom.
The Northman, the legend begins. Rated R.
Claim my kingdom.
Hello, hello, hello.
The Northman, the legend begins. Rated R.
All right, so let's see. Are we actually coming through this week? Are there any lags? Can we hear me? Been a horror show of trying to get my internet to work. Last week, the telephone pole caught on fire and it melted our internet box. So last week. So if you all can yell out, someone chat, make sure you can hear me. Give me some feedback. We're going to do some crits today. I'm not seeing anything. Can anyone hear me? All right, here we go. I'm not Shane. I see they haven't changed my name. Tomas here. Yeah, I never get. All right, so YouTube can hear me. We can hear me. Is there anyone on Facebook? Facebook out there? Facebook. No one on Facebook. No. Hello, everyone. How we doing today? Everyone have a good week or 2 or 3? I know it's been forever. I feel like I've been having a very rough connection. It's frustrating. But we're here. And that's good. Hey, old man. Yeah. Make sure there shouldn't be any lagging. 6-second lag. Hello, hello, hello. So, if there's not much chatting, I guess let's dive right into this. Here we go. This is, oh look, that's awesome. I don't know. All right, so this is Maxon. Okay, so what do we have here? Interesting tall figure we got. And if anyone wants to upload, the link is up there. It's ZBrush.sh at TSW. See the link in the title there. I guess my title changed at 8. Good. All right. So if anybody wants to upload anything, the link is in the title. Feel free to upload and we will evaluate what you got. Since I haven't been last couple, I do apologize for the living hell that has been my streaming the last few weeks. All right, let's see what we got here. He obviously is floating very far off the ground, which is fine. Okay. I know, right? Learning new things is always. Okay. So let's get in here and look at what we got. That her head and neck are pretty far back, right? because that's her neck. And that should lead into the shoulder. So you can see the neck's pretty high, and that makes the breast look really low because oh, you can see that your head and neck sort of got slid back. Little small. All right, let's get back to everyone. So I think that somewhere along the way, your head just got moved back. See, it's not even sitting here. So I would say that's probably more just things got shuffled around. But your head's too far back, and I'd say it's probably a little high as well. I like your line stuff. It's really good. Your rhythm, your surface rhythms are actually really nice. A lot of people who try to do this, things just get really busy. But I think you did a pretty good job of interest. You're still blocking up, you know, the stuff stretched out. I know this is finished model. Say that definitely on your way. When you do get to the point of doing these separated lines, I find that using it's a Sakaki Karu, one of Sakaki Karu brushes. It's Carve. I like Carve for these lines because it sort of has a flat end, and you get really nice separation with it. And then what I tend to do is I pinch, and I'll almost always come back in and just pinch these together a little. And what that does is just get it, you know, you don't want to pinch them all the way together, but what pinch does is it changes the surface. So instead of this just being like this and being the same surface, pinch tends to bring these two things up. And then that way you get slightly different reflective surfaces. So it gives you a feeling that these two things are not the same plane, but varied a little. And I think it adds for some nice character in the part. Hey, it's Riz, how are we doing? But as you can see, some of this is still real low res, so you're not going to get kind of fine detail. I like how this is going together. Be careful with this stuff. Just make sure that when you're doing this, these things are not intersecting, right? If these are hard surfaces, just make sure that they're not touching or conflicting. Obvious. I assume this is sort of like Baron Harkonnen and Dune, where floating is here or need. Assuming this is, if it is meant to be so dramatically distorted where he's floating for effect, you may want to consider getting these to be dramatic as well. Just so it appears that it's not an accident, right? Like, oops, I made the legs too small. I might consider dragging the sleeves there, but that's just purely aesthetic. I just think that if it's as such, it just feels like this might be a mistake as opposed to it being a conscious decision. In doing some, like, you have this breaking that line, but you know, you might want to, that's breaking the line as well. Then the only other thing I'd say is especially with her hips being this wide. And her head's a little small already. I might make the head just a little bit bigger. I mean, this is a nice silhouette you have going on, you know. So in making the head bigger, you may pull this out a little more just so you are getting a good, you know, line there. Because if this gets out too much, these shoulders are going. Other thing you might want to do is when you have like heads and stuff, use your folders, create folders so you can select just certain areas. I didn't realize this was like 3 pieces. But you come in and you can, you know, select the piece and then would make just a little and bring it into have the patient go through and select. Yeah, honestly, I think where you're at, that's pretty much it. Looks really good. And for those of you colors, so yeah, so I think that one, make your head bigger. In here, make sure that you don't have edges that are conflicting. Consider dragging these down. Get the head in the right place. And then, you know, just come and refine your cuts and edges. And I don't think you spent as much time in the back trying. Here's another where these have this weird conflicting here, and this is rubbing through the side. So, yeah, and you have, you know, you obviously work on the, which is, yeah, so head a little bigger, get the head and neck in the right place, extend the lines, find your edges. Other than that, it's good. You do a good job of like how you break things out are quite nice. You have some good visual. Amy. Let's see. It's always tricky with stylized characters. You can always go, no, but that's what to do. But let's get into this for a bit. So people's heads, like your head and neck area is a little odd. Normally your head is sort of an oval and then another oval and then the neck. So you wouldn't have this. But once again, it's stylized, so you can always tell me, no, that's what I meant to do. Maybe. And then also, you know, there's a little bit more contouring here, how the bones go. Right, because your cheekbone comes in like this. Right. Excuse me. I'm like, am I being so non-responsive? So you have some issues with your faces. Once again, stylized character, so you can always tell me I'm wrong because you meant this to be stylized. But normally what you have is, because this is created from the eye socket, your cheekbone, your teeth, your nasal cavity, Goofus's chin, jaw, right. So you can see you've lost a little bit of that going. There are people whose mouths are inset more. Under normal circumstances, you're sort of does something. Right? Normally your silhouette does this. So usually this is a slant. It's not something where the nose is. You get that chin. Once again, stylized character, so maybe it's what you want. Now, this is a big issue. A lot of people have it. Armpits don't do this, especially in clothing. See how this comes up and is in here? You got to think that this seam does this. So this sleeve connects. You're never going to have a sleeve that comes in like, because you can't wear that coat. You never have little spikes. So this does something a little bit more like that. And then that's what creates these wrinkles. That's connecting there. That's connecting there. And then you can see, even from me just pinching that, this becomes a much more natural armpit where you have these wrinkles. Where you get these. One of my styluses. And that's where these become wrinkles as opposed to just a big scoop. Right? Because if you look at patterns in coats, you sort of have it up and deep. And then your next pattern looks like this. And so what that's giving you is that's like, and so I mean, there are some shirts that are cut that way, very, very few, and especially not coats because you're supposed to be wearing something for that. Your armpit's going to be much lower on it. And these are created by wrinkles. They're not just scoop. Yeah, once again, stylized characters, but very rarely are you going to have just a big open crack here. Normally, you get a little bit less space there, and then your buttocks come face. But it's very difficult because, you know, they're stylized. Oh, I meant. This is fun. Your leather's doing pretty good. Just remember, you're never going to have airspace in belts, right? Belts never sit off the body. They have to sit on the body or they work. But don't allow them. Make sure that in your belt. Over one another. And then once again, and just remember these have to be under tension. So if there are no loops, it's probably not going straight across. Okay, wrinkles. Usually these wrinkles are caused by the crease and the crack. So they're going to start there. Even if you have tight pants, that's where your wrinkle is. And then some of this is tension. You know, but it's usually going to start in the crotch. Knee pads. At least you're thinking about where these wrinkles are underneath. Often, though, with the knee pad, you're going to have wrinkles above, right? Because it's preventing the pant from down. I know this is preventing the pant from rising up. Usually this stuff is going to happen on top, not necessarily. You have broken ankles. But you can see that this line, put your heels like at a slant, like just want to be careful that these things line, right? Because you can see just by sliding that, all that. All right. Also, your center of balance is very forward. You just want to take skew and bring the ear above the ankle so they're standing straight. I mean, you're definitely getting there. Your layering's nice. I mean, you're getting some good stuff going on. Just wrap your head around your anatomy a little more. And if you're going to be simplistic and stylized, stay simplistic and stylized. Because if this is really simple and going, and then you have really ornate sculptural stuff going on here, it either makes it seem like you don't know what you're doing or you haven't picked a style, you know. It's yeah, you get what. Any questions on this one? So just to go over it, your head shape's a little funky. Make sure your armpits are actually attached, they're not just scoops up. Think about your thicknesses and how they're sitting. Make sure your belts are actually touching. Wrinkles, think about where they are. Don't have broken ankles. Think about your crotch area. This is very thin and flat. I think don't. Normally this is right, this, and there's sort of a that says that's a 13. Why do you have noise on? No, it's skin. Don't put skin texture on something that doesn't need. So what you're missing is your still super weird. Look at that. That's the 13. I'm barely gonna. But remember, this isn't flat. There's a wrist bone, and then your hand has a little depth to it. Thumb actually sits on the front of the hand. So sort of, your hand has depth and stuff. For some reason, my clay tubes is not. Yeah, no. Yeah, something's going on. But a hand just isn't flat coming into the wrist. Okay. So your forearm comes up into your wrist. That's going and sort of that shape. And then your fingers. Right. So it's not just this flat thing. Your silhouette of your wrist to hand. And then your thumb isn't flush, it's coming off down. Right. So wrist, into the thumb. Into your. So don't think of it just as a flat plane. Interesting. A little better. Once again, your armpits are a big issue. Remember that the bicep is actually attaching to the scapula and going up and into your armpit, right? So you sort of have you're doing these almost like they're ball joint toys, where it's just sort of like, right? If you're doing actual anatomy, that's not how this works. You have to remember that this stuff right here is actually behind bicep. So your bicep back. Um, so you have your deltoid. You have your bicep. And then your between there. And that's still, this is still a little far out, and that's still look. But remember that these are layers. So you have your pec, your bicep, your deltoid, pec, and then your lat is behind. And that's how you wind up getting that profile. And like I said, this arm is, you can see it's too far back because this is coming through up to here. But hopefully that helps a little. Sort of like a little. Here again, your head shape's weird, right? Skulls end up here in the necks. Actually, your jaw sits for your neck. These muscles. I think your head's a little small. You can see it well above. I think that if his leg's not really short, just your knee. So your anatomy is a little funky. Practice your anatomy. There are a couple of really good anatomy books, Anatomy for Sculptors, which is a really good way to start because it breaks down the body sort of sculpturally. I show the then the other one I said. All right. So you can see that this one really breaks it up. It shows you all your placement, but what I like about it is it gives you your blocks, so it shows you sort of like contouring and how your sets, your block sets are. And then also, I like that they're drawing muscles on photographs, so you can actually see the photograph. You can see where the shoulder sits here, and yours was sitting way back here. You can see there's not the space in armpits. Armpits do not have space because they cross over. See, the bicep is crossing up under the pec, under the deltoid. So it's these three triangle intersections. Front. This is classical sculpture, fitness models, and anatomy. And you can see here it shows you layers and what's happening. And you're getting the anatomy, but what's nice about it gives you some of this stuff showing you where things. It really breaks it down. And like I said, it's showing you see a rough block out, but it's on a photograph, so you can actually see what's happening. It's not just imagined, right? You can see your lats, how your bicep is actually digging into the arm. Pec is going over your bicep. See your in between the lats. So this really gives you a good breakdown of how and you can see that it's breaking it up into shapes. And that's what's nice about this. It's really designed for sculptors, so you can get your blocked out shape, so you can sort of understand what's happening. So I would suggest this is a really good study guide. And then these are scans of actual people, so you can see what they go through. And once again, right, they're breaking up in shapes as muscles and then just as the photograph, so you can actually see what it looks like, what the surface detail looks like, as well as because often the anatomy can be pretty distracting. Even and this is the only studying anatomy. And what's nice about this is that it allows you hard anatomy, right? But you can see but here you can see, like, you can see the crossovers. You tap it, it tells you what the muscle is. You can fade things, like if you want to see what's behind this muscle, you can fade it and underneath. So this is a really, and also this will give you quizzes. So if you really want to learn your muscles and stuff, this is a good program, because like you can click on things and you can say quiz me, there's a thing, and you'll go through and like it shows you your insertions and origins and the actual names. And so this is a really good this is a really good, a very good education. The other thing this has, muscle action. And so it'll show you what muscles are being used. So you can see that this is what's happening as you move shoulder. And here you can see that this is the internal pec. See how it's coming up? This is what's lying under pectoral brachialis. But your bicep is connecting here to here. It connects up here to the scapula. So you can see that it rides under the pec and your lat. So these are really good. But you can see where your biceps up over, and then it's, see how that is very definite, not just floating out, because your pec is connected, right? So you can really see how the muscles are going. Once again, this. All right. Well, you know, it's showing you the muscles that are being used in certain body action. I think this is really important. They're a little flat, but I think it's really helpful information. And then, you know, you always have your whole body system. Here's your hole. So you can see where things, and this you can see here because none of this muscle has bulk because your lat close. But you can see if we see how this is coming up in, and then your pec is crossing over. So you're getting, see how far over your pec muscle going actually deltoid, pec, bicep. And so you're getting that cut in there. Because there's nothing there except the lat coming back, right? So the armpit really is sort of just a big hole as but this is a very, very good education. Like I said, you can like it gives you all of your information. You know, you click on something, it tells you all of your stuff, diagnostic stuff.
Pectoralis major.
It shows you how to pronounce it, and this shows you insertions and origins on the muscles, right? So you can see where each one inserts, where its origin is. And it shows you what actions are attached to it. So it's a really good way of seeing, and I like it. And I mean, so here quizzes. So it takes you through, and you can the gallbladder, and you know, it's it. Is you ever okay? So I would say do a little bit more anatomical. And now getting to your shapes. So let's look at here again with the belts. And look at how much space you have in here. You got to remember the stuff is fabric. And this is pinching here. So if it's pinching onto the waist, it needs to pinch onto the waist, right? And then, because none of this is cylindrical, they're shaped to the body. So don't forget, shape them to the body. It has to go underneath. True. But I think this is going to be a good exercise where you get the belt in the right place, right? And it's usually going to sit above the hips because that fabric on against the hips, so it fall down. So get your belt in place. Turn on your fab. And so now you can see that a little bit bigger. And now for your fabric to make sense, it needs to be inside the belt, right? And look, there's still tons of room in there as far as the belt goes. So come in here. In. Puckering. right? Because these things have waist, they're not just cylinders. You can see just by tugging it in this much, we've already changed the silhouette quite a bit, right? And see how it's still pretty robust, right? But see how it has a waist now instead of just being a cylinder. So that, make sure to attach the stuff to the body. Don't just have it floating out. That makes sense. Even like fire plugs have weight. When I moved your arm, so sorry about moving your arm around. These are pretty cool, but they're not going to be straight. They are going to fit to the leg, right? That's going to look a little more, just so it ties into the leg. Things were actually pretty fitted. I mean, see how that's feels like it's wrapping around the leg and it's part of the model as opposed to just this thing that was built flat and attached to it. So think about your body cylindrically. Make sure your armor pieces are fitted and wrapping around. Make sure waists or hips are hips. Don't just throw cylinders out there for belts. You have your wrinkles and stuff here, but none of it travels to the edge, right? So you got to think that this is a skirt. It's going to have, this isn't just going to hang as a cylinder. So you're going to have to put, this is where your wrinkles are coming from as your skirt is going. So you're just drawing on some of these textures where this really would be right. These are continuing through that surface. They don't just stop before the bottom edge. If that makes sense. All that's doing. That makes sense? But they tension out around the hip. I mean, you can see these skirts are coming down and around wrapping. So they're not just losing it. Trying to find. Okay. There are no. That's not it. But you can see how it's tensioning on how it's rubbing on the outside edge, and then your wrinkles are down. And so I think that you have to think about the wrinkles like the. Obviously, this is metal. For some reason. What's whole? Go back and do. There's a TV suit. Someone help me. Stargate. No, oops. And I misspelled it. Okay, let's try that again. Guys. Because they were. So I was. Okay. Oh well. You get it. But I think you see what I'm saying, right? Because this is actually going to tensioning off the leg. And then these that hanging. So make your head bigger, get your armpits working right. Do a little more anatomical study from both of the parts. Probably use a bit more. Nothing personal. It's helpful. Get your wrinkles right. Make your belts attached to the body. Yeah. Hopefully all that is helpful. All right, Henry. Am I missing any? Audible. Are you trying to talk? Oh, we're not in Discord. All right, how's that? Can you hear me?
Hey, yep.
There we go. It only took me 6 weeks to figure out that I wasn't. My mic's cutting out? Is it just that I'm leaning away from the mic?
I think that would help. It's like you've got a noise gate installed in OBS or configured in.
Yeah, OBS has been.
Yeah, as at the end of like sentence.
Nope, it just happened to you. Oh wait, it just restreamed.
Restream's been working.
I just got. but I wasn't sending a message. Oh my god. I've been living the cursed stream life, I swear. So frustrating. All right. Could I have a noise gate set anywhere else?
I don't think so. But just keep the mic close and we'll figure it out later.
It's really funny. My friend's wife works for Apple, so I got a set of the AirPods, and that Bluetooth did solve the problem. So they connect, you know. So today on my walk, I still have both of these, right? Can you guess what I dropped on my walk?
You dropped the case?
I have no idea where. I went back and looked for it. Somebody picked it up and.
Dang.
I had it like what, a week?
Yeah, that didn't last long.
So angry. Okay. Nightbot's freaking me out. It's links. What are we linking? Okay. On to our next groover. Here. So, Amy, if you look at this, this is a really good example of, this is obviously a stylized character, right? But if you look, the anatomy is really tight, right? You can see that everything's in the right place. So even in stylized characters, having your anatomy tight, especially if you're doing anatomy, it's very helpful. So this is a really nice anatomical stylized character. I would say that your hand's still a little flat. The wrist isn't that thin. It has like some thickness to it there. And I see this a lot. You know, there's like this hump right here on, I mean, look at your hand. There's like a hump there. It doesn't just go flat. So remember that wrist to hands have a transition. It's not just the flat thing. And then there's a little thickness to the hand. Right? It's not just. Okay. Other than that, it looks really tight. I like your creepers. That's the only real problem I see is the wrists. So because he's wearing pants, you get too much in there. And this is where stylized characters not having this gaping hole in the gap in legs that you drive cars through. That's fine for stylized characters because they're stylized, but human bodies don't. So eyes.